Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our ongoing study in Paul and the Faithfulness of God by N.T. Wright. We're going to take a look at a summary graphic picture of Part 1 and Part 2 of Professor Wright's book. We're going to cover a foundation for Paul's theology as identities, narratives, and signs, narratives, and signs. And what it will do for us is that in a snapshot picture like this, we can get a look at the foundational structure that leads us into Part 3 of Paul's theology. When we get a chance to really look at the narratives and the identities and the signs together. And so I think it's going to be helpful for us to recapture Part 1 and Part 2 of Professor Wright's masterful work on the Apostle Paul. Let's begin by looking at the title. And again, it is the foundation for Paul's theology. It does consist in identities, which are double identities. In other words, there's an identity that needs to be rescued and fulfilled, so it's a dual identity. There are narratives, and we read again and again that Professor Wright in these past lessons has always emphasized the narrative nature of Israel. Now we'll take a look at the apocalyptic markers and the specific signs that dictate Kingdom of God for Paul. Let's take a look at our headings. We're going to have 6 columns. We're going to have the starting identity of the dual identity. And then we're going to look at the narrative that is in need of redemption. And then we'll look at the messianic narrative that is an unexpected fulfillment for Saul. And then we'll look at the apocalyptic markers for Paul's theology of cross and resurrection. And then we look at the specific messianic signs that empower redemption. And then we can look at the fulfilled identity of the dual identity. And then horizontally, we're going to be taking a look at Israel. We're going to be looking at Saul. And we're going to look at the age, the present and the coming age, which was posited by Israel. We'll begin with the first column. We're going to take a look. The first row. We're going to take a look at the starting identity of Israel in Adam. Israel as in the flesh in Adam. They're a narrative in need of redemption because the narrative is God and Israel coupled with a unfulfilled as yet Jewish apocalyptic. And the messianic narrative becomes Christ as faithful Israelite fulfilling the vocation that Israel had abandoned. The apocalyptic markers are cross and resurrection for Paul. A specific messianic sign that empowers this redemptive work for Israel and Adam is ecclesia. Ecclesia as the called out ones of the new temple. And then as a fulfilled identity, Israel and Adam becomes Israel of the circumcised heart. And that gives us our summary look at the first narrative and the first dual identity. Now we'll take a look at the level of humanity, which we're going to take a look at Saul himself. In row 2, the starting identity that needs redemption is Saul of Tarsus. And the narrative that works here for Professor Wright is God and humanity and the fallen obedience of humanity in abandoning their vocation given to them in the klesis call of the divine God. The messianic narrative becomes Christ as embodiment of love, of agape self-giving, who resolves the judgment of Torah. Christ resolves the judgment of Torah. Again, we pass through the apocalyptic markers of cross and resurrection that leads to the specific sign of in the Messiah. In the Messiah becomes the sign of a renewed humanity for Paul. And therefore, the fulfilled identity can be reached. Saul of Tarsus becomes Paul of eschatological turn, a 180-degree eschatological turn. Saul of Tarsus becomes Paul of eschatological turn. Now we can look at the third row and the final row, the present evil age. When we look at the present evil age, the narrative that applies here is the narrative of God and creation, that overarching narrative, and the loss of stewardship that humanity has abandoned. Now the messianic narrative as the unexpected fulfillment is Christ as second Adam, who restores the people of God, who restores the covenant people of God. Again, we pass through the apocalyptic markers of cross and resurrection, and we reach the specific messianic sign of the parousia, which is not only the final returning advent of Christ, it is also the current eschatological messianic rule for Paul. Therefore, present evil age becomes fulfilled as coming apocalyptic age, which is already inaugurated in the resurrected Christ. Already inaugurated in the resurrected Christ. So it gives us a picture here. We get a look at a graphic we want to have in front of us as we go through part 3 of Professor Wright's book. If we have this graphic in front of us, it'll help us to really stay focused on the foundation which underlies all of the additional work we're going to study in parts 3 and 4. So this is our foundation. We have our foundation. I hope you can print it off the screen. If you cannot, just send me an email. I'll bring a hard copy to church, and you can then you can just go ahead and get a copy of that. But I will bring a hard copy on Sunday evening if you request it. But hopefully most of you will be able to print it as a digital image, hopefully. But if not, like I said, just let me know. Send a text, send an email. I will bring a hard copy to church on Sunday evening. This will wrap up a powerful graphic summary of the foundation for Paul's theology, from Paul and the faithfulness of God. It's the closing graphic which really encapsulates 619 pages. The foundation for Paul's theology is given to us in parts 1 and 2. That is 619 pages. So now we have a graphic image that we can look at and reference to stay focused, to stay planted firmly on the foundation for Paul's theology as we enter into part 3. And that's going to wrap up our summary graphic image for parts 1 and 2.